As part of the National Week of the Young Child celebration, advocates gathered at the State House to talk about the importance of early childhood education and the crisis facing our state. Kadichi Lawrence has more from Augusta.
Supporters of child care providers, including parents and lawmakers, are calling attention to Maine's child care crisis. They say they often wear many hats.
These hats contain cook, custodian, accountant, social worker, and nurse, on top of the already stacked roles that we play.
With little to no resources, including pay disparities.
They can't afford to stay in this industry and care for our kids.
Senate President Troy Jackson says the state can do more to help.
Last year, the Maine legislature funded wage stipends for providers, which was a good first step. But let's face it, that's nowhere near enough.
He says it is time to make strides to ensure no more child care workers leave for better opportunities. A difficult decision Amanda Collimore has had to make when she left her passion of working with children for a job with the University of Maine.
I could make more money doing that. I was able to make more an hour. The benefits were so much better.
With two bills in this legislative session, including one that would provide group health care coverage for early childhood educators, Collimore says early childhood education is important.
All of the studies show that the most important years for development are that birth through age 8. And you continue to develop after that, but that's where you start learning how to deal with anger. That's where you start learning how to hold a pencil.
She says the path is different, yet essential.
And I think the important thing to remember, too, is that high-quality early childhood education looks different for each student, which is why we need to ensure that we have a variety of options for parents, because not every center can provide the unique needs that every child needs.
Kadichi Lawrence, WABI TV5 News, Augusta.